Hello, thanks for joining us on Journalist Hangout on Sunday. I'm Ibrahim. Today on the program, opinions divided as Lagos implements partial ban on commercial motorcyclist operations in 6 local government areas. And Kwakwanso plots big upsets in the northwest with NNPP. And later on the show, Journalist Hangout Weekend Special is on the hardship faced by airlines and air passengers over perennial aviation fuel scarcity. I'll be hanging out with Dr. Oladipo and Adekunle Yusuf. Babajide Kolade Otutoju joins us from our Abuja studio. Journalist Hangout starts now. Let's begin on a solemn note. 1 year after his death, military officers, associate and media professionals converged on Abuja to remember former Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Ibrahim Tahiro. The late Army Chief, who died in an aircraft crash alongside 10 other military officers, is believed to have had the proverbial magic wand to end insurgency in Nigeria. TVC News Defense correspondent Sifon Isien has the story.
A gathering of military officers, friends and family of the former Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Ibrahim Tahiro, 1 year after his death. Also present are media professionals, traditional rulers, and Nobel laureate Professor Wole Soyinka. General Tahiro was Chief of Army Staff for only 114 days, that is, between January the 26th and May the 21st, 2021. He died alongside 10 other military personnel in an aircraft accident in Kaduna.
And we say, Amen. Please let's be seated.
The event in Abuja provides a platform to highlight what he stood for and his contributions to advancing the Nigerian Army and the security of the country.
The late Coas was a noble soul, a great soldier, and a patriotic Nigerian who lived his life in total dedication to the service of country and humanity.
It also emerged that apart from leading the army in the various roles he played, General Tahiro also gave back to the society through humanitarian services he rendered.
General Tahiro loved to give back and believed in seeking knowledge. Whilst we served in Calabar and Enugu as brigade commander and GOC, he would make me design numerous programs for youth, women, widows and orphans in the barrack community, some of which continue to be implemented by his successors.
Behind the hard-looking face is a soft person who cares and who is very, 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 who has the country at heart.
Nobel laureate Professor Wole Soyinka notes the sacrifice the soldiers play in safeguarding the territorial integrity of the country and observes that their heroic deeds must never be forgotten.
One's empathy with the fighting man thus goes beyond even the self-exposure to the ultimate sacrifice on the battlefront. Even when we're powerless to ameliorate their condition, as the third supposed leg of this uneven, precariously balanced tripod, we identify with their frustrations, their sacrifices, and honor their memory.
He also condemns the killing of Deborah Samo for alleged blasphemy in Sokoto. But without detracting from the achievements of the fallen army chief, several persons, including a media professional, took turns to read tributes to General Tahiro, which is part of a biography launched at the event.
Nothing has pained me in recent times as much as losing General Ibrahim Tahiro, and I wept like a baby when I heard the news of his passage. I called Brigadier General Yerima and told him to confirm his death to me. And for all he was saying, I was just crying. And he was begging me. He said, Jide, it's okay, it's okay. He's done his bit. That is why Allah took him to be with him.
The author of the biography explains why he undertook the task.
It was indeed a true Nigerian man whose life inspired a lot of people. And I find it a privilege to have been invited to document his life in such a way that everyone who reads should find some inspiration about Nigeria.
A foundation set up in honor of General Tahiro will be keeping his dreams alive. At the end of the day, many here say General Tahiro may no longer be alive, but his legacies are indelible. Sifon ACN, TVC News, Abuja.
All right, let's look at this particular issue where I will be speaking with Dr. Oladipo and Adekunle Yusuf. Thank you very kindly, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Right, we actually are waiting DKO to join us via Zoom from Abuja. Well, let me start with you, Oladipo, Dr. The late chief of army staff, was a man that we thought that would help us to fight insecurity to a standstill, but we lost him when we lost him. What do you make of his loss?
Well, for me, he did well and left at a time when Nigerians had hope, very strong one at that the battle against Boko Haram and the ISWAP was going to be won very quickly. Whatever happened during that time, one thing that we'll always remember the late general for is his courage. He showed that he is a man who could match words with action. He's a man who doesn't sit back in the office. He leads his troops. Within the 1 year he was in office, his activities were well documented on the battlefront. And that is a strong signal to those who are on the seat now that no matter the order that you give, no matter how much of orders you back out, the most potent weapon is showing how it is done. Yeah. When he came, he reminded me of late General Victor Malu when Nigerian troops were in Liberia, subsequently Sierra Leone. Malu showed something, and that was leading the troops himself. He was there himself at the forefront when the Nigerian troop got Charles Taylor, right in his bunkers. And that, for me, is the hallmark of leadership in the military. Someone who is willing to show that I don't only give orders, I can also shoot. Mm-hmm. I can also lead. I'm fearless. And that, for me, was what marked out his tenure.
Well, Adekunle Yusuf, 1 year after the crash of the Nigerian Air Force known as Beechcraft B-300 King Air 350I, carrying the late general, there has not been real investigation into it. There was actually a preliminary reason, given for the crash, but then we really do not have the information as to what led to the crash. What does this say about the investigation, accident investigation?
It's a military affair. They will not be able to say that investigation they may decide not to make for them. And going back to the late general, and I think about 10 other gallant officers, who died alongside him. See, he came at a time Nigerians were thoroughly dissatisfied with the services of those handling the security sector in Nigeria. Yeah. Nigerians were openly calling that sack these service chiefs and all that. And when the president eventually, listened to Nigerians and brought in, it was formerly I think with the Operation Lafayette Adoli, and people knew the exploits made.
Indeed.
So when he came on board, Nigerians had a new sense of optimism that, but unfortunately, I think he spent less than a year, 4 months or 5 months. Now, you see the way people describe him. Thorough professional. Tahiro, not immediate predecessor in office, who is now an ambassador, said Nigeria was on the verge of winning the war against them, with him in charge and all blah blah blah. You see, it is normal when we do things like this, because when we lose some of our best and remember them as our heroes. So when we remember people like Tahiro, and other officers who died, say something about who we are, and if we choose to forget their services, it also says something about who we are. And I'm happy that at least for our sake, we are remembering services, memories of these gallant officers. Because when they died, it was a bad time for Nigeria. Thank God that some people have come up now. What is documented.
Yeah, before we change tack, let me come back to you. It's been said about him that it was believed that he had the proverbial magic to fight the insurgency that's ravaging, not only the north, but the country as a whole now. Did you also have the same feeling because of the fact that he didn't have enough time to spend in order to prosecute this war against insurgency?
Yes, I think that feeling is real. And like I said earlier, there is no way you are going to take it away from him. For the short period he was there, the chief of, it showed that if you read his reports, you will always hear he's in this place, he has spent 4 nights here, he has done this. And that, for me, matters a lot. It matters a lot. And that's why, like the last question you asked, I felt the Accident Investigation Bureau should have taken a more rapid, it should have taken more rapid steps of working with the military to know what actually happened to that aircraft. Because a lot of us are curious. Because when you look at it, in the military, you have some of the best pilots we have in Nigeria, well trained, flying even in very dangerous and bad weathers. I've flown on a couple of them, and I know that these guys, some of them even go to some of the war colleges in the US to lecture, even the Americans, on how they are handling what we consider outdated fighter planes here, and they are doing quite well. So what happened should be of interest to all Nigerians to this flight. We must know, and we should know quickly, because this is 1 year after. It's sad that for every accident that happens, it takes about 3-4 years. It's getting better now. Under the present DG, at least the helicopter that crashed in Okwebi here in Lagos, we've had a solution to it. We now know it was fuel that got finished in the chopper. So, but this should be of concern to Nigerians. We lost a man in whom we have even invested heavily in terms of training. In fact, what he has taken away with him is huge. So we should know what happened to him.
All right, Adekunle Yusuf, he also said that it's very important that we know what actually happened, but then it's very also important for those who are the top echelon of the military, those in the authority, because they say what goes around comes around. If the investigation is done, although AIB said they've got the information, but then it's left for the military to release the information. But at least, just like I said, what goes around comes around. We have to ensure that this never happens again.
I think I would rather prefer the public to know what really happened. Let me be honest. Because you remember a lot of conspiracy theories surrounding the crash that led to the death of General Tahiro and other officers. I think because of that alone, a lot of speculations need to be put rest.
We've got BKO now because we need to change tack. BKO, thank you so much for joining us. Yesterday on Issues with Jide, you extolled the personality, the professionalism of the late Tahiro, Ibrahim late General Ibrahim Tahiro. You said he was a good friend, he was a professional. Talk to us about the person of late Ibrahim Tahiro, very briefly.
For his death, and normally I try to give army generals some distance, but I saw his determination, I saw his commitment, and I saw a man honest in his approach to defeating terrorism in our country. So I naturally took to him, but death snatched him and prevented him from completing the task of defeating terror in our country. But you all recall that even the idea of Boko Haram fighters surrendering in droves began during his time because of the intensity of the war, as well as the efforts made in terms of intelligence gathering through the officer who headed the intelligence unit. That's General Kumuyi, who also died along with him in that ill-fated aircraft of the Nigerian Air Force. So I'm particularly pained that it didn't complete the task, but God knows best. And I know also that we will have picked up valuable lessons so that this kind of crash does not happen again. You will recall that a smaller aircraft was used to convey those officers because the Air Force was using its main passenger aircraft to carry some retired Air Force service chiefs who were taking part in the Air Force week in Makurdi, celebration of the Air Force week in Makurdi. So if we had a bigger aircraft to convey them at that time, the unusually fast speed of the wind, which swept that small aircraft off the runway, certainly that bigger aircraft will have stood up to the wind.
Right.
That is the feeling. That is what preliminary investigation showed, that the speed of the wind was the main cause of the crash, because usually when an aircraft touches ground, it bounces off the surface of the runway. So once that small aircraft, designed to carry, I think, about no more than 14 persons, once it bounced off the runway, the speed of the wind swept it off, and the aircraft was already fully loaded with aviation fuel. So it tumbled and then caught fire.
Right.
So in future, at least to carry such caliber of servicemen, such high caliber servicemen, we would need to use the Nigerian Air Force Falcon, which is a bigger aircraft designed for transporting people. You know, it will certainly, in the opinion of Air Force officers and generals that I spoke with, it certainly will have withstood the speed of that wind, which caused the crash. But remember, we always learn from this kind of things, and I'm certain that our armed forces will have picked up valuable lessons.
All right, absolutely. Just like you said, we believe that the military must have actually learned a lot of lessons from this. Let's look at the next topic, which is because it's very worrisome that the security situation in the southeast is deteriorating at an alarming rate. It has forced the General Superintendent of Deeper Life Bible Church, Pastor William Kumuyi, to cancel his planned crusade in Abia State. The crusade was scheduled to hold in Abia from the 24th to the 29th of May, but the proscribed Indigenous People of Biafra told the 80-year-old pastor not to go ahead with it. Before that, IPOB had asked security agencies to flush out criminals enforcing sit-at-home in the region. In a statement, the Media and Publicity Secretary of IPOB, Emma Powerful, said such criminals are not IPOB members nor Eastern Security Network operatives, as IPOB volunteers don't enforce non-existent Monday sit-at-home. Meanwhile, the federal government, through the Minister of Police Affairs, Meigari Dingyadi, has branded unknown gunmen operating in the region as terrorists. BKO, I would like to start with you again on this. Do you consider the suspension of the crusade as a smart move?
Well, I think it makes sense to not go ahead with it. Yes, in the East, Christianity is the dominant religion. The people had been involved in big crusades over the years. But in a situation in which security is almost collapsing, if it has not even totally collapsed in that part of the country, if Pastor Kumuyi went ahead with it and some people got killed, of course he's going to be blamed for such fatalities. So I think it made sense where you cannot guarantee the security of people who will be taking part in the crusade. It makes sense to shelve the idea of having that crusade. I'm really worried about the security situation in the southeast. The armed forces need to double up their efforts because it is their responsibility to protect our people. The region, especially those two states, Anambra and Imo, are slipping into anarchy. A situation in which people get kidnapped and get beheaded and their heads paraded in public places is just unprecedented. So I think it makes sense to take the decision that Pastor Kumuyi has taken. In future, when security improves, he can return to the area and carry out his crusade. Remember, even when the governor was warned that they will be attacking local government headquarters, Governor Soludo decided to shut down local government headquarters because if people got killed for coming to work, of course the governor will be blamed. So this is the situation that we found ourselves. The IPOB agitation has been totally hijacked by cultists and other criminals. Now you can see that the center cannot hold. The center cannot hold anymore. A lawmaker representing the governor's constituency was kidnapped along with his aide. And after almost 2 weeks, it turned out that they had killed the lawmaker, and his head was put in a carton and dumped in a public place. His up to now has not been located. I mean, this is just terrible. It's unbelievable that the southeast or some parts of the southeast could slip into this avoidable anarchy. And
yeah, absolutely, BKO.
I think that greater efforts need to be made to secure the area on the part of the leaders of the region, on the part of traditional rulers, and even the governors. Something drastic has to be done to arrest
this drift to anarchy.
Right, let me bring you to the studio. Dr. Oladipo, well, IPOB said they claim that they are giving security intelligence to the church because they know much about the security situation in the state than any other person. It does appear that IPOB is now becoming an intelligence agency.
Well, in that regard, you are right. And in the past, really, IPOB has been quite clear on some occasions when attacks were carried out that we warned ahead that this was going to happen. The challenge we're having with IPOB is that some people are carrying out attacks in their name. So it's like, to some of us, IPOB is giving a warning that I'm going to attack. That is the way it seems to a lot of people. So until we're able to separate these so-called unknown gunmen from IPOB, we are still going to be in a situation where IPOB will only be warning that IPOB wants to carry out an attack. That's what is happening in this case.
Well, Adekunle Yusuf, I'm not sure whether you're trying to fix your microphone, but let's try it, whether it's going to actually pick a sound. Well, IPOB knows, they said they know better, but then we know that IPOB, just like he said, they started all of this insecurity of a thing. And the unknown gunmen are also almost saying the same thing IPOB is agitating. For instance, sit at home, they come out, they destroy the community, they say sit at home, they're implementing sit at home. They also are, clamoring for independent state of Biafra. So who are we to believe?
Who are we to believe? We created this, the Nigerian state. You know how IPOB evolved, and when you mishandled a small crisis, it can blossom to something more, deadly, and that is what we are having now. We are reaping the fruits of poor leadership. IPOB, you remember, there was nothing like this many years ago in Igbo land. So it's a creation, let me say, a response to certain things that people of that region perceived as part of the failures of this current administration. There was nothing like this in Igbo land before this administration. And when it started, the way we attacked it. So you repressed. So people went underground. I'm not making any case for IPOB, but what is happening here is we need to do more before it becomes something worse than Boko Haram. The damage they are doing to Igbo land, the damage they are doing to Nigeria now, it's almost on the same scale with, other terrorist organizations. You get my point? In a society where you can be kidnapped and be beheaded anyhow.
As a matter of fact, the news that we got,
a failed state or a state that is going towards,
Yeah.
You get my point?
Yeah, the recent news that we got was that a lawmaker was actually beheaded, and and saying that if politicians do not, answer or accede to their clamor, that they will continue to do that. That they will be, if they do not withdraw the soldiers from the southeast, then they will continue with their shenanigans.
Then, by our standard, a lawmaker, we have security, operatives around him, and yet this happened. You know how many people have been kidnapped and killed in gruesome, manners like this in the last 1 year? But when you look at it, this is the time the government needs to do everything. We say, okay, how can you have a state? We have a government. Then we have government within government. Because now, you will see a state governor giving directive that, no, you are free, go out. Then you see another government, illegal one, that will say, nobody must go out.
Non-state actors.
And who do the people obey? They will obey the illegal government. And this illegal government, see what is at, what it has become.
Yeah.
You now have the militant wings, you now have, the IPOB that was proscribed by the government of Nigeria. You now have the IPOB that was called on known gunmen, what do we call them in the media now? So they kill people, they They kidnap, they
Yeah.
do everything.
Yeah.
And yet, in a country that has government,
Yeah.
it's unacceptable.
Is actually unacceptable, just like you said. Well, let's look at the next issue, which is the tertiary education in Nigeria is paralyzed. Means drastic measures are required to salvage the situation. As part of this, the National Association of Nigerian Students is begging presidential aspirants to raise money for the Academic Staff Union of Universities to end the strike. In a statement by the chairman of Ogun State Joint Campus Committee of NANS, Kehinde Simeon, in Abeokuta, the students called on former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, the national leader of the All Progressives Congress, Bola Tinubu, and other presidential aspirants to raise money to meet the demands of striking university lecturers. BKO, this looks like an honest request.
Asking politicians to provide money for the funding of public universities is not the ideal situation. It's a quick fix. And you don't comprehensively solve problems by adopting the quick fix approach. Public universities must be adequately funded. They have to be provided for in the budget. And the provision for the funding of public universities must be adequate. What I'm saying is we have to prioritize education and ensure that these public universities are sufficiently funded. Let's not deceive ourselves. Yes, we may have so many private universities all over the place. Private universities can only account for about 10% of people seeking university education, seeking tertiary education. So government has to realize that tertiary education is something that it has to prioritize. If we watch the public universities die as a result of poor funding and associated problems, it will cause massive problems, big problem for even our unborn children. There is no way that an overwhelming majority of Nigerians can afford to put their children in private schools where in some cases parents are made to pay as much as 800,000 naira per semester. So we have to realize that there's no way the government cannot abdicate its responsibility. If it needs more funding, it can come up with laws that will ensure that corporate concerns in our country dedicate a huge portion of their profits to funding education. We've seen some states like Kano State, make it mandatory that in any transaction, in any monetary transaction that you are doing with the state government, a certain percentage of what you are paying goes to funding public education. We can have that at the national level to ensure that we secure more funding through the instrumentality of the law for our public institutions. It's not enough to simply imagine that because politicians have so much money or because some people are stealing money, as we have seen the Accountant General being accused of stealing 80 billion now. Therefore, we have to look at politicians and tell them to pay what ASU is asking for. The Federal Ministry of Education is the employer of ASU members. Therefore, the ministry, assisted by the Federal Ministry of Finance, must come up with funding to freshen up infrastructure in the universities, must meet the demands of ASU. What ASU is asking for is not simply, give us this amount of money. How about the issue of UTAS? Can the politicians that Nance is begging to release money, can they solve that problem? It's beyond them to solve that problem, for example. They are saying we don't want IPPIS. Give us something more flexible than IPPIS, which is the UTAS. So even if politicians release some money, to pay for what ASU is asking for, how about the big decision which has to do with UTAS? Because those are the two major issues that ASU is asking government to do for it. So I just see this as a kind of quick fix. Government must be resolute in its desire to adequately fund ASU. And the way to do it is to tell them, for government to tell itself that, look, in the budget, this is the percentage that we are giving education. Some of the countries around us, Senegal, Ghana, and the rest of them, the percentage of their budget that goes into funding public education is way greater. So we have to look at even our surroundings and ask ourselves whether we are funding education sufficiently.
There is an urgent need to reposition our public universities. I was having this conversation with someone like saying the politicians are making a hell of a lot of money, the parties actually at this time. So it could be that the students are they have a feeling that let's just cash in out on these people. They should just help us to solve this problem. At least they are gunning for positions. So do you think it's possible for the politicians to say, the aspirants to say, okay, the highest bidder are putting money, I'll assist the government because there's cash crunch?
I don't think the students are going about it the right way. What we should be doing by now is to set the agenda that among this crop of money bags, who are aspiring to run the show after President Muhammadu Buhari, then you ask for the blueprint, what their plan on education, so that you can mobilize Nigerian youths that this is the person that we should vote for, that this man has a plan that we believe is the best for this sector, because the sector concerns everybody, parents, children, everybody. You get my point?
Yeah.
You see, in any society that aspires, to be something worthwhile, there are two sectors you must never toy with: health, education. Without touching those two sectors very well, every other thing you do will become meaningless, because the two sectors are about human beings. They make you who you are, that's education. Then whether you'll be okay, you'll be alive, you'll be able to, contribute meaningfully, that's health. Without doing things in this area. But when you look at our country, what do? We have the kind of leaders that we should not have. Just, I'm sorry to say, I'm not trying to be unfair to anybody. You see state governments, federal governments, establishing universities, polytechnics, upgrading universities, upgrading polytechnics, upgrading colleges of education, when the existing ones are poorly funded for political reasons. That's what they keep doing. The ones they have, go there. So if you go to universities in other places, then you come to our own, and you now say, okay, are we the idea of a university? Do we really understand what it means? So for our future, we need to sit down. Maybe there will be a law. Okay, for every administration, whether social party or whatever party, it does not matter. This is about country. This is about ourselves. This is what we will, devote to education. This is what we devote, to health. That we have not done. So what the students are saying is just to further model up the system. We need to, put these people, gunning for presidency. We need to ask them critical questions. What would they do if they have the opportunity to become president? You get my point?
Right, absolutely.
Instead of collecting their money.
Absolutely, your point is made. Dr. Oladapo, I want to quickly make a weigh in on this. Just like someone who is drowning and saying, I'll hold on to any available strand of mystique or anything just to stay afloat.
The point is, how much will these people likely give to the system to reflate it, so to say? What ASU is telling us is a request for about 200 billion naira. Among these aspirants, how much are we likely to get? Fine, they are all going on campaigns and all the rest, but it's a part of the political process. You can't truncate that. just to fund education. That is one. Like my colleague said, we also need to interrogate these aspirants and ask them pertinent questions. Because a lot of them come into power not even knowing what to do with the power. And that perhaps is one of the things we are suffering now as a nation. Because you ask yourself, this issue with ASU and the Joint Action Council for NASU and all the other non-academic bodies, they've had all of these memorandums of association and understanding or whatever signed. 10 years in some instances, some much more, and nothing has been done. If, like we say, you promise a man 20 naira over 20 years, and you are consistently paying 10 naira, that man will see a commitment towards what you are doing. Yeah. We should also interrogate what is happening with the funds made available to the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, because these are monies from companies paid as funds into the education tax fund. What are we doing with the money? Does it align with what all of these university associations want and the polytechnics and colleges of education? Yeah. Because they're all involved now. Does it align with it? Is this just about construction of buildings? Or federal government saying the Ministry of Works should move into tertiary institutions to construct roads? Yeah. Is it all about that? Are we talking about just projects and all the rest without adequately ensuring that we have the right staffing, the right equipment to even teach?
Making sure that everything is
fine.
In place. Yeah.
As in doing some sort of balancing act. Right. Not for us to hear that Third Fund has given 43 million to build Senate building here. Ministry of Works has done 200 kilometers of roads in universities. Yeah. We should be able to juggle some of these things. That's what makes us leaders.
Absolutely.
Because all right. You can't just put all your funds, all your eggs in one basket.
Absolutely.
Seriously.
Absolutely.
And maybe if I can quickly add also, these associations should also help us. They can do they can get a lot of grants that can go into some of these things. They should help. It should not just be all about give to us. We should be able to get something from them. Professor Ogundipe did something in Unilag in his almost ending tenure now, getting research grants as much as 17 billion.
All right, we'll continue to talk about that, but we need to change tack now by looking at main issue, which is the issue one, what the menace of commercial motorcyclists, popularly called Okada riders in Lagos, is becoming a hydra-headed monster that sprouts the more it is caught. After restriction on activities of Okada in February 2020 without a respite, the state governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu directed a total ban on their operations in 6 local government areas, effective from 1st of June 2022. Opinions are divided as enforcement of the ban in Ikeja, Surulere, Itiosa, Lagos Mainland, Lagos Island, and Apapa began with the Commissioner of Police in the state, Abiodun Alabi, labeling them as foreign criminals or criminals operating as commercial motorcyclists. BKO, I would like to start with you. Why has it been so difficult to sustain the efforts of the Okada ban in Lagos?
Because the political will is simply not there. The governors of Lagos State have continued to think that the heavens will fall if a total ban on the activities of these motorcycle taxis is effected. But that is a wrong assumption. Some time ago, Kano State had by far the highest number of commercial motorcyclists in our country. But today, commercial motorcyclists have been banned in Kano. They were banned at the height of the Boko Haram insurgency because they were being used to kill people. Two men on a motorbike will storm a street, fire at people, maybe people at a drinking den, and then escape before the soldiers get to the scene. So they decided to ban them. They were replaced with tricycles. I thought it was not possible for Kano to ban Okada because I worked in Kano for years and I knew that a lot of Kano people relied on commuting from place to place with the Okada. But Kano has banned it for years now. And nothing has happened. In Kano, if two of you are on a bike, you are going to be arrested. If you are riding alone, then you are not seen as a commercial motorcyclist. But the moment you carry a passenger, you will be seen as a commercial motorcyclist. In Sabongiri, where we used to rely almost entirely on them, what we find now are tricycles, people moving around in tricycles and all that. Abia State has also gone ahead to ban. Commercial motorcycling began in Akwa Ibom State long before states like Kano and even Lagos began to even use them. Today, commercial motorcyclists have been banned in Akwa Ibom. In fact, it was the IPOB administration that banned them, and the government provided alternatives to them. Good-looking taxis, and some of them were told to come and apply to use those taxis. So Governor Sanwo-Olu has to be told that these guys are not Nigerians. Largely, they are not Nigerians. They are foreigners. They are not going to vote for you. Do not be under any illusion that these are people who could determine who wins an election in our country. They don't vote. They are criminals. They are not from our country. They are in our country because our borders are porous, and they don't deserve to be here. People who can, in broad daylight, in a place like Admiralty Way in Lekki, lynch a man in broad daylight and set him ablaze because of an argument, they don't deserve to be going around. They don't deserve to be carrying people because they are top-grade criminals. All that needs to be done is provide alternatives. Maybe 5-seater commuter buses, 7-seater commuter buses. Replace them. Those who are interested, let them come and buy these cars. Even if you are going to pay on pay in installments. There is I don't know any mega city that the popular means of commuting is by motorcycles. So these guys, the government just needs to show that courage. Ban them. All this partial ban is not the solution. Ban them outright. replace them with something better. Something that fits the status of Lagos. You ban them in 6 local governments, they move elsewhere, and they'll be operating in those places. So what have you gained? Fashola banned them at that time, but we had problems with enforcement. So they go to places where they've not been banned. There is no, all the states that have banned motorbikes, banned commercial motorcycling, they did not do partial banning. Right. If you want to ban them, if you are tired of the activities, then ban them outright.
Right.
The bulk of accidents that we have, the bulk of patients in orthopedic hospitals in Lagos are victims of Okada accidents. A lot of people get killed in Lagos when their phones are snatched and other things snatched from them by so-called Okada riders. They killed an assistant superintendent of police the other day in Ajao.
Yeah.
So people who are even killing our law enforcement agents, why are we keeping them?
Well, right, Biko.
So they've got to go, in my view.
Right. Let me come to you, Adekunle Yusuf. Well, do you think that because just like Biko said, they've been banned several times, right from the Fashola administration to the Sanwo-Olu administration. Recently, they banned them, and then when the NSAS issue came up, and then the COVID-19 pandemic also came up, it was like everyone wanted to struggling for survival. Could that be the reason why the enforcement of the ban was weakened?
No, it's the state government that should answer that question. It's whatever the state wants to do, it should do. But the state government doesn't seem to, have the political will, to go ahead and do what is right. See, let me tell you, in May last year, this state government, Governor Sanwo-Olu, convened a security summit. Jide, we just spoke, we were there too. All groups, all major groups, be it traditional rulers, community leaders, transport unions, everybody who was somebody was there. The state government, the governor and his cabinet members were there. The immediate past commissioner of police in the state, Akim Odimushu, was the one that presented a paper and with graphic details, statistics, data, everything, what has been happening. And everybody, I was there from the beginning to the end, everybody agreed, ban Okada in, commercial motorcycle all over Lagos State. And the state government went ahead, the security summit that day came up with a communique, 12-point communique. But that was the end of the whole story.
So the idea was to ban Okada in its entirety.
It will never work when the state government is behaving in a very timid way. 2 local government, 1 local government, 1 city. No, do it. Heavens will not fall. See, let's be honest. Not everybody. Abuja is not for everybody. You don't have business staying there. So is Lagos. So are other cities. You get my point? The moment you now say, you want to accommodate everything, no, it will not work. The criminality that goes on through Okada riding, you need to. It's so sad that I didn't have the copy of that, paper presented by Kim Odumus. I would have been reading, facts, data, and rousing applause when he presented that paper that day.
As a matter of fact,
so it is the state government that we will ask the question. See, when I was coming all over Ikorodu Road today, yesterday, day before yesterday, every day you see bikes all over highways. Some are so daring that they even drive
against the traffic.
Traffic.
Absolutely.
That's one. 2,
when you look at BRT, apart from the menace of Okada people, there's another one on Lagos Road that you feel sorry that do we have government in this state?
What's that?
You have truck. What do you call this one?
Cart pushers.
Cart pushers. Some of them carrying food items. Some of them carrying iron. Other. And you will see them dive not on the
pedestrian road,
they
pedestrian side.
Direct, some inside, the BRT lanes. Every day, some you will be lucky not to even hit them. And you say, what manner of life is this? All over.
It's quite appalling. We're actually due for a break. We'll take a break and then we will take it from where we're leaving it off. Do stay with us here on Journalist Hangout on Sunday. We'll be back. Thanks for staying with us here on Journalist Hangout. I've been speaking with Dotun Oladipo and Adekunle Yusuf, and Babajide Kolade Stoju has been on the show from Abuja. Thank you very kindly, gentlemen, for your time on the show. Let's pick it up from where we left off. I will be coming to you, Dotun Oladipo. The Okada ban is a thing that actually affected some of us here. It has affected a lot of us. As a matter of fact, recently, one of our staff members here in CVC was very close to the office. He had crossed the main road, used the bridge, came down, and was walking on CMD road, walking normal walk on the pedestrian road. The next thing you see was an Okada rider coming at a full speed, hit the lady, and broke the thigh. Had to be bedridden for 6 months before she resumed work. You can imagine how tough that is.
Yeah, it's so sad that this is happening in a mega city like Lagos. This issue, like Biko said, has been on for a very long time. And like he said, what is missing is the political will to tackle it. It will create some discomfort. It will create some dislocation. But in the long run, we'll be better off. At some point when we had this ban and we moved from let's do it in a phased manner. We had some respite in terms of robbery in areas like Ikeja, Ogba, Ikorodu, and the rest. That was when you had no Okada from 10 p.m. till 6 a.m. Yeah, we had respite from robbery because it was obvious at that time that was the tool being used. What still is the audacity of these Okada riders? The kind of things that they do, the kind of evil that they perpetrate, which was exactly what happened in Lekki.
Yeah.
One man has an issue, about 100 will join him, whether he's right or wrong, to back that person. Once we have the political will, we can do it. It's just a matter of explaining to the citizens.
Right. I think you all are unanimous on the issue of having political will, and then we'll bring this menace to rest.
But also government has its own part to play.
Yeah.
About a month plus ago in Lagos, we saw a lot of taxis doing roadshow. I'm not sure I've seen those taxis in action.
They are parked in strategic.
At some time also, we had these small buses, the ones Lagosians call Morokwe. We have a few of them operating, but we still can't see enough of them. At some point, we had major bus stops constructed in Lagos. The one in Ogba is no longer functional. The long buses don't come there again. So the government must match this political will to ban Okada with sufficient transportation, which is mass transit.
Yeah.
I'm happy for Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu with the rail system he's putting in place. That will help.
Right.
That will help a great deal.
Makes sense. Let's we're trying to race against time because the time is really fast spent, really. Like a bird in search of a nest, former governor of Kano State, Senator Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, had gallivanted from the People's Democratic Party to the All Progressives Congress and back. But it appears he had found a home in the new Nigeria People's Party, NNPP, which is using to plot big political upsets, not just in Kano State, but the entire Northwest. A testimony to this is that 16 out of the 40-member Kano State House of Assembly have defected to NNPP. In addition, former presidential aide Kawo Sumaila, former chairman of House of Representatives Committee on Appropriation, Abdulmumin Jibrin, 2 current members of the lower legislative chamber and other defecting APC members have also joined the NNPP, with another former governor of the state, Senator Ibrahim Shekarau, also teaming up with Kwakwonso. Analysts say the NNPP might claim Kano and Jigawa State in the 2023 elections. BKO, Kano politics is actually one of your fortes. Help us understand the gale of defections in the last few days. What's happening?
Yes, I think this is a problem that has been there for some time. It just happens to get worse in this political season. Remember the primaries, the ward primaries of the APC in Kano was very acrimonious. The governor had his faction, Shekarau had his faction, and Senator Shekarau's group actually secured 3 different court judgments, in their desire to show that they are the dominant and the mainstream faction of APC in Kano State. The matter went on. The leadership of the party could not resolve this issue. Meetings were held. In the end, what the party decided was that in any ward, the highest ranked political office holder in that ward becomes the natural leader of the party in the ward. If it is a House of Assembly member that comes from that area that is the highest ranked, he becomes the natural leader of the party in the ward. The same principle applied at local government level. The highest ranking politician by way of elective position in whether it's party elective position or otherwise in the local government becomes the leader of the party in the local government. Then when you got to state, the Mai Malabuni leadership of the party at that time then said that the governor is the leader of the party in the state. That was affirmed, which means that Senator Shekarau had to now sit with the governor to have a meeting where they can share power. You and I know that once it gets to that point, politicians see contestation for power as a winner-takes-all affair. We knew at the time that decision was made that it would be easier for a camel to pass through the eye of the needle than to have these 2 individuals sit together and share power. Where 2 individuals who suspect one another are told to sit together and then share power. There's no way that they would be happy to do it. The position of the Shekarau group at that time was that since it had decisions of the court favoring it in respect of the primaries, that the party should have given it greater percentage of positions to share. But of course, a governor will not sit down and agree to a situation in which somebody who is not governor gets like 60% and he gets 40%. So despite the fact that Shekarau had an edge at that time because subsisting court orders favored him. In the end, the matter got to Supreme Court, and the Shekarau group, famously known as the Group of Seven, lost the battle. When people fight themselves and they get as far as Supreme Court, it makes resolution even more difficult, because the one who has won will now believe that it is now in a position of strength. Then having the one who has lost make concessions become even more difficult. But during this time, Senator Kwankwaso, whom nobody believed could ever work together with Shekarau, because they have been sworn enemies, sworn political enemies. Remember, for a long time, they didn't have anything to do with one another. If one entered the party, the other one will leave the party for him. It's just like what you had in Sokoto between Maga Takadawa Mako and Tahiro Bafarawa.
Yeah.
Both of them will not agree to be in the same party. Right. One will leave for the other.
Right.
So Kwankwaso continued to apply pressure and promised Shekarau a better deal in their new party. Kwankwaso wanted to exploit the discontent within the APC and even the PDP. So once he started making this move, the pressure was on Shekarau to eventually move to
NNPP,
Kwankwaso's party, especially given that his own supporters had been moving ahead of his own defection. 16 lawmakers, there were actually 17 House of Assembly members. One of them has gone back to the APC. The governor was worried about this exodus and then decided to surrender his own senatorial ambition to Senator Barau from Kano North. But it still has not stopped these defections, because more and more people are moving. Right now, what Shekarau wants to, what Kwankwaso wants to do is to feed off the discontent in Katsina, in Kaduna, in Jigawa. And when you look at Jigawa, Jigawa is like Kano's brother. They usually vote along similar lines. So what he has done is to get the former chief of staff to then Governor Lamido in Jigawa to come to NNPP so that he can be given the governorship ticket. That is the same thing that he's trying to do in Katsina. He identifies people who are strong, who have been denied position. He will now offer them position. That's what he's doing in Kano now. So you have some powerful Kano politicians like Kawu Sumaila, the presidential aide, you know, joining him. You have the former speaker of Kano State House of Assembly, Kabiru Al-Hassan, who is very strong in the state. He is in the House of Reps now, representing Rano, Kibia, and Bunkure. He has also gone to join Kwankwaso, making Kano South more like a swing zone. Because with Al-Hassan and Kawu Sumaila, it means that Ado Alandogwa has a big job to do in that area. Now, with Shekarau and Kwankwaso coming together, Kano Municipal has become more like a place that the governor and his people have to struggle hard. Remember, during the last governorship election, Kwankwaso's candidate won in Kano Municipal, but they lost the election in the rural areas. But having Kwankwaso and Shekarau coming together to work together now in a state where the politics has always been like a tripod on a tripod made up of Ganduje, Kwankwaso, and Shekarau. Having a situation of 2 against 1 has made this, the situation very precarious for the APC.
Right.
And they know that if they do not work very hard, it will be difficult for the APC to retain the state. I know that it's still a long time between now and the 2023 election, but the battle line has been drawn. The NNPP is waxing strong, not just in Kano, but some of the states around Kano, and
Jigawa.
The Kano state governor and his strategists now know that they have a big battle on their hands to ensure that the defection of Shekarau, the former governor, does not cause them to lose the state, because everyone knows that Kwankwaso is a tremendous grassroots politician. He remains very relevant, very strong.
Yeah. Right. Things are actually unfolding very, very fast in Kano State, and we know how critical Kano as a state is when it comes to elections in Nigeria. Whatever happens there can directly or indirectly affect what happens, you know, anywhere in the north, and as a matter of fact, everywhere in the country.
Yes, don't forget that in those days, that was the stronghold of PRP, People's Redemption Party.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that was the notion Kwankwaso had in mind when he started this NNPP. And don't forget that.
No, according to NNPP, they said the party has been there
for
21 years.
I know, the party has been there. But Kwankwaso has a movement called Kwakwansia movement.
Kwakwansia movement, yeah.
So the party saw the beauty of Kwakwansia movement and partnered. You get my point? And maybe at the time they just felt if this is done in Kano, from my findings, you know, long before this upset, what I heard was that whoever will win the presidency of Nigeria, I had people in, you know, Kwakwansia team, you know, talking, boasting that whoever will win the presidency of Nigeria will be forced to come and negotiate with their team. That whichever party will, you know, aspires to win the presidency, don't forget the quantity of votes that normally
it's a truck full of
normally get
truck
from
full
that
of votes
from that place. Then a lot of issues. Don't forget the re-election, you know, blues. I'm talking about Governor Ganduje's second term. You knew how the election went, you know, you remember.
Absolutely.
So Kwankwaso for now is not in the Senate, it's not in any office, but he's pulling a lot of strings.
He's a grassroots politician.
Here is a man who is like #1 enemy when it comes to Shekarau. But now the two are together. I keep saying whatever may have brought the two together, it shows very dangerous signals to the APC in that state.
Right.
And from my findings, I'm told that many more people will still leave APC and join the new party. And you saw what the former governor said, Shekarau, what he said that he suffered under Ganduje. I was shocked. You know, we didn't have the opportunity to cross-check from Governor Ganduje. He spoke about how they started, how they begged him to join them, and how, and that since that time, how he's been totally ostracized, how he's been ignored. You know, he detailed so many things. Whether most of these are true or not, you know, we didn't have the opportunity of asking the government to, you know. But there is a lot.
Well, Doctor, the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yes.
Is that the way they say it?
If you watch what happened the day Kwakwanso and Shekarau met, You saw there was a panic in the government. As soon as Kwakwaso left Shekarau's house, the governor's delegation arrived in order to be able to also speak with him, because they know that something is going to happen if it remains this way. And I would like to back it up with figures, because that's what counts in politics.
Yeah, very quickly.
For the last presidential election, the APC got over 1.5 million votes from that state. If you break that down among these two parties, we know it is likely the NNPP will get more. That means out of the 15 million votes that APC will claim it as in its kitty, about 1.5 million is gone. Because that's what the APC had in the last election. So that is gone. When we go back to previous elections, when things were smooth, or when things seemed to be, when things appeared to have been better among these parties in 2015, and Ganduje sought re-election, he got 1.546434 million votes. The PDP that fielded its former candidate, that's the APC's former candidate, Saliu Sagio, got 509,000 votes in that election. I'm talking of Sagiru now crossing over and joining forces with PDP. When it came to the 2019 election, and there was this news everywhere that the candidate of the PDP, that is Abba Kabiru Yusuf, is an in-law of Kwakwanso. Things changed. Kwakwanso later came out and said, he's not directly my in-law because he didn't marry my daughter, but he married from my family. That did not change the equation for APC. Because what Ganduje got was 1,033,695 votes. And Yusuf got 1,024,700, a difference of about 9,000 only.
Okay, so
whereas the other one, it was over 1 million votes.
By way of extrapolation, what do we actually deduce from all of this?
What we deduce is that without a Kwakwanso in Kano and Shekarau backing any government, it is not likely to be able to win election. That's the deduction. Because you can see a difference of 1 million votes from 2015 reducing to 9,000 for Ganduje to win. And it took a lot of what the opposition described as manipulation to get to that point. So the party must be careful. That is why Ganduje is trying everything to concede, but it appears it is coming a bit too late.
Well, but it appears that the more the governor Ganduje tries to, settle the party's rift, the more the fault lines continues to, widen. But I wish we could, continue on this, but then the time is really fast spent, and we'll have to rush to the next topic. We just hope that President Muhammadu Buhari is able to wade in, if possible.
He has tried.
If anything can be salvaged at the end of the day.
Even at the national level, the parties they've tried. Right. But it seemed as if what Ganduje has as a problem is he makes a promise, the next minute is going back on it.
Well, we'll see what happens. There's still enough time to see if they can resolve this matter. Well, from roads to the air, it appears there is no respite for travelers in Nigeria. While insecurity makes traveling by road suicide missions, citizens now have to pay through the nose for air tickets. These are tough times for airline operators and air passengers in the country due to rise in the pump price of aviation fuel, also known as Jet A1. In this journalist hangout weekend special, we'll take a look at the pain and hardship that air passengers are going through, as operators say paying as high as 100,000 naira for an hour flight is becoming inevitable. Here is the story.
The rise in cost of flight tickets came like a bolt out of the blues to many Nigerians. Many citizens have been forced to abandon other means of traveling. But before long, problems set in as flights were being disrupted due to scarcity and hike in price of aviation fuel, also known as Jet A1. Airline operators informed Nigerians that the steady rise in the price of Jet A1 has made business near impossible for them. They said the only option left for them was to shut down operations. Nigerians, especially the elite, whose most favored means of travel is by air, were jolted. Palpable tension followed as the roads were not safe. In its bid to prevent the airlines from making good their resolve to down tools, the leadership of the House of Representatives intervened. Standing in for the Speaker, Deputy Speaker Ahmed Idris Wasi led other principal officers and relevant committee chairmen to a meeting with stakeholders in the aviation sector on the 10th of March. But fuel marketers were not in attendance.
Wanted to know what is the cause for the lack of the aviation fuel, the increase more than 100%, to crash the aviation fuel price to normalcy.
I have the mandate of every airline in this country to announce to you, sir, that if they can't come down from their rooftop, we have only 3 more days to be able to fly.
After more than 3 hours of deliberations behind closed doors, the ad hoc committee directed an immediate crash in the price of aviation fuel, which was about 700 naira per litre.
You will begin or commence the process of application for your own license to be able to import your own jet fuel. So that will remove whether it's middleman, whether it's fourth man, whether it's whatever, whether it's the vagaries of, you will know the landing cost and you will know it will assist you.
Despite the intervention by the lawmakers, nothing seemed to have changed. The fuel marketers remained adamant. This forced airline operators to issue a 3-day notice to ground their airplanes. Worried by the development, the House again convened another meeting the following week, this time with the fuel marketers duly represented. The marketers say the increase in the price of the product was induced by the Naira's decline against the dollar. After all deliberations, the meeting agreed that the product be sold at 500 naira per litre to the airline operators, but the arrangement again failed to work. Airline operators threatened another shutdown of operations, and the lawmakers again returned to a negotiation table on the 9th of May.
For everything he read out here, it was about 530 or thereabout. 540 as the cost. How then are some people now offering us 480?
The meeting again agreed that the NNPC should supply aviation fuel to airline operators at 480 naira per litre.
Also engage and agree on a premium which is differs from customer to customer depending on the volume of the product you buy and then the credit limit that you are able to do. So this is one thing that they can negotiate in 3 days.
The rapid spike in the price of aviation fuel has led to the collapse of the interventions by the lawmakers. Airline operators say passengers may have to pay 100,000 naira and more for every local trip, which is about 71% higher than the cheapest option if the cost of Jet A1 remains high. According to experts, aviation fuel worldwide is said to account for about 40% of operating cost of airlines globally. But the present hike has increased the cost to about 95% in Nigeria. I visited the local wing of Murtala Muhammed International Airport in Lagos to assess the situation. It's indeed a thing of concern as Nigerians, including the airline operators and passengers, are still caught in between the hike in aviation price as well as airfares. Passengers here are lamenting. Those who spoke with TVC News stressed the need for the aviation sector to be seen as an essential service that should be given special consideration by the government.
It has gone up generally, just like everything else in the country.
My ticket is 53,000 naira to Uyo, from Lagos to Uyo. But when I was coming, I paid 55,000 naira.
The last time I bought the ticket was around 56,000. But just realized that this ticket I bought is about 96, 97,000 going back to Abuja.
People need to move to do business. I don't know how much profit people are making that they can afford to pay this kind of exorbitant airfares.
Passengers in Abuja also expressed concern about the disturbing hike in airfares and Jet A1.
It's really very difficult for us as customers to deal with some of the expenses.
Affecting people's pockets. You budget say in the next 2-3 months, you have a program to do, spend to and fro 60,000 to 70,000. You end up spending that amount for one way. So we request that government should look into it.
Coming from Lagos now, it used to be 28, 30,000, but now it's almost 50-something thousand. So it's actually, we are feeling the pinch.
A sudden surge in the price of flights, and you don't have an alternative considering the security situation in Nigeria.
Olumide Onhunayo is an aviation analyst. He speaks on the implication and possible solution to the hike in aviation fuel.
Contamination is you cannot joke with it for the air transport. It's enough for road transport, how it knocks down engines, but you cannot try that with the airlines. You know what, that would be very fatal. And you know, for the airlines, one accident makes it look like 15 accidents on the major road. So the industry is not joking with that contamination because it creeps into safety and might be dangerous for the industry, and that demarcates the industry. So we've never given room to it, and everybody's on their toes. That's why we don't. It's not all marketers are involved. It's like a conglomerate. They do themselves. They have all the checks and balances in place, and it's not being toyed with. When you increase about 100 and something thousand, I have only 6 or 7 passengers. It's not profitable. So there's a delicate balance here, and that's why they're fighting not to increase, so not to discomfort Nigerians, but to have more people flying. And as more people fly, everybody smiles, both the passengers, the airlines, the regulator, the government agencies, because taxes are being paid as people fly. So I think by and large, I want to see them, the airlines and the government work together and see how they can temporarily, because what we have now is an energy crisis that is not peculiar to Nigeria. And because it's not peculiar to Nigeria, there's a need for the government agencies involved in the oil importation and delivery to see whatever charges that can be removed temporarily so that the price can be reduced for this period.
Fuel prices have continued to rise in the global market since world powers began to impose sanctions on Russia after its invasion of Ukraine in February. Experts say in the face of the global challenge, Nigeria must look inwards and come up with urgent solution to prevent the situation in aviation sector from deteriorating. Jacinta Obiuku, TVC News, Lagos.
Well, there you have it. BKO, it does appear that, appears clearly that travelers are in for a long haul. Okay, I think we lost connectivity with BKO. Let me come to you. The roads are not safe as it used to be. The train tracks are also being waylaid by bandits and insurgents and so on and so forth. And then airline is now becoming a no-no for moderate citizens.
It's really a bad, sad situation. Because for businesses to thrive, people need to move. So when the roads are not safe, the railways not safe, then the skies should be safe. But when the airlines are not working, what happens? Are we going to make sure everything is don't want to be using terrible words for my country.
Please don't.
You understand my point?
Yeah.
It's very, very sad. And I thought that it will be a temporary thing. Of course, you may say, we may try to contextualize that it's not a loan. I mean, Nigeria is not alone, and it's a spillover of what's happening.
Yeah.
But it's our job to fix our, problems.
Yeah.
That when it gets to a situation that the airlines will have to grant their aircraft, then it means a lot, and that must not be allowed to happen. You do everything in a manner that the airfares have skyrocketed, that we bounce back on so many things, the prices of things, they will affect.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Services, goods and services, and because when the cost of running businesses, continue to skyrocket, everybody suffers it, especially the very poor. I don't know why we have not been able to submit any.
Wow. Well, Dr. If airlines are shut down, so many things will be affected. A lot of businesses will be affected. Their staff members will join the unemployment, falls, and so on and so forth. So, what can be done to salvage this situation? It just appears that we have the solution most of the times, but we don't want to do it.
Well, you are quite right. The solutions are here. And we've said it several times on this program. We need to start producing things that we need in this country. Until we get to a point where we stop importing, we are going to continue with this crisis. We don't produce the fuel here, just like we don't produce petrol here. We need to get to that point. The Jet A1 is still part of what comes out of our refineries. So we depend on shipping out our crude and bringing out the refined products. So it's going to be high. Same thing with the spare parts that we use, whether for vehicles or for aircraft. We have been speaking of and talking of Ojakuta still for years. Yet, as we speak, there is no solution. So if we continue along this line, we can't get any better. And unfortunately, we're only talking about one aspect today. We shouldn't forget there are so many other aspects, including the fact that it is not only going to be the fact that we won't be able to fly, we may not be able to eat soon again. Because when the cost of doing business is high, and goods and services go up, you have very little in your pocket to do other things. And that's the reality we are saying. So we should begin to talk to ourselves. How do we start producing fuel here in this country? It first reduces the cost of bringing it in, which is the importation, and then the so-called landing charge. All of this will be out completely. So it leaves us with taking it from the refineries to the point of use. If we produce more of some of these small parts in Ajakuta here, it also saves us all of that. Cost of importing, the port charge, all of this. Now, there's a problem in the ports. Some of those who bring in parts, for instance, they put it in vehicles that they bring in and all those, these people are not clearing vehicles again. So meaning that even the parts that they are going to get at the end of the day would have, acquired a lot of demurrage, making it costlier.
Yeah.
So I hope we won't get to a point. Look at it now. There are some states, Akwa Ibom, for instance, the airport has a repair hangar. Who is taking the planes there? Because there is nothing that is going to happen there.
Right. Well, BKO, I understand BKO is back. BKO, a top oil marketer said that that Nigeria is broke and that people who fly are not as many as those who make use of the road. So it's not beneficial for the government to subsidize or to even subsidize for the sake of the just few people. So the airlines should just go ahead and increase its airfares. And I'm sure you're out of Lagos, you must have paid through the nose.
Yes. The government, successive governments created the mess that we have found ourselves in now by not keeping our refineries working. If we were able to refine crude oil in ample quantity here, and Jet A1, one of the byproducts, is refined here. The huge landing costs made worse by the incremental decline in the value of our currency would not have happened. Because let's face it, it's not just because we are unable to refine. The value of our currency is a big factor in the high cost of aviation fuel. We are subsidizing PMS, but we are not subsidizing aviation fuel and diesel. Diesel is being sold now on the average at 700 naira per liter, whereas back in February this year, it was 225 naira per liter. Look at that massive change in price. It's the same thing that has happened to aviation fuel. Aviation fuel is not being subsidized, and from about 190 naira per liter some months back, before Putin launched his senseless war in Ukraine, we are now, it's being sold to aviators at 700 naira per liter. So you have a situation in which the cost of aviation fuel now accounts for more than 70% of their total operational costs. And they still need to buy spares, they still need to pay pilots, they still need to pay ground technical men and all that. And the pilots are paid in dollars. So the cost of aviation fuel alone has really worsened things for these airlines. And if care is not taken, the airlines will start dying one after another, and nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to see that. Whatever government can do, it has to do. And if these aviators are saying, give us license to bring in this product by ourselves, so that they are not subject to Shylock marketers and all that, I think that it's not too much for government to do this, because nobody knows when Putin will leave Ukraine. So how much longer are we going to be going through this? When Nigeria slipped into recession, the aviation sector and the agri sector were the two sectors that were in positive. Other sectors were not doing well. But we've had progress in the agri sector as well as the aviation sector. Now the aviation sector is in crisis. We've got to help reflate one of the few sectors of our economy that are doing well. Yeah. When people talk like the person that you are quoting, they fail to realize that in the aftermath of 9/11, many people were reluctant to fly. The president of America had to subsidize the sector. They had to give money to the aviation, to players in the aviation sector. So if they can do it in America to save that sector, why can't we do something to save this sector in our country?
All right.
This is just my view.
Right. Absolutely. Quite very, very sad. But then there's a lot to be talked about. There's a lot to talk about, actually. But then we really don't have the time. We just have to call it a wrap on Journalist Hangout. And I'm sure that conversation will definitely continue on our programs as well as Journalist Hangout tomorrow. So that's all. I say thank you very kindly to our guests so far. Babajide Kolade Otutoju from Abuja, joining us from Abuja. Thank you very kindly, BKO, for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And also, Dr. Oladipo, thank you so much for the time.
Thank you so much.
And Adekunle Yusuf, really appreciate your time.
I'm glad.
Thank you. Right, and that's our show on that Journalist Hangout on Sunday. Join us tomorrow for the regular episode of the program at 5 p.m. You can watch the repeat broadcast of this episode tonight at 11:30. We're on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. I'm Ibrahim Shita. Bye for now, and God bless Nigeria.